Harmony Creek was a town that prided itself on its predictability, a place where the rustling of autumn leaves was the loudest sound on most days. The houses with their neatly trimmed lawns, picket fences stood like silent sentinels guarding the quiet lives within. People here enjoyed the gentle rhythm of existence, the comfort of knowing that tomorrow would be much like today. It was a town wrapped in a blanket of comfortable silence. Secrets were thought to be as scarce as traffic jams. But even the most peaceful places have their shadows. A darkness was beginning to stir beneath the placid surface, waiting for the right moment to make its presence known. The package arrived for Clara May on a Tuesday. It was a plain brown box, surprisingly light, with no return address. Clara, a kind soul who worked at the local library, assumed it was a gift from a distant relative. She loved collecting unique things, her small cottage a testament to her eclectic tastes. With a sense of mild curiosity, she sliced through the packing tape and lifted the lid. Nestled inside a bed of tissue paper was a doll. It was not a pretty doll, not in the traditional sense. It had large, expressive ears, a mischievous grin that seemed to stretch a little too wide, and eyes that were just black, vacant circles. On its foot, a small tag read, Labubu. This was no ordinary plaything. The Labubu doll felt strange in her hands, its vinyl skin cool and unnervingly smooth. Clara felt a brief, inexplicable shiver as she looked into its blank eyes, a feeling she quickly dismissed. The strange occurrences began that very night. Clara was awoken by a soft thud from the living room. It sounded like a book falling off a shelf. Annoyed, but not alarmed, she got out of bed and padded down the hallway. When she entered the room, she found everything in its proper place. The books were neatly stacked. The ship in a bottle was secure. The Labubu doll sat exactly where she had left it. Yet the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. The air was colder there, a pocket of chill in the otherwise warm house. The next day, things grew stranger still. While dusting, Clara noticed that the Labubu doll was no longer facing forward. It was turned slightly, its head angled towards the family photos on the mantelpiece. She was certain she hadn't moved it. Later, while reading in her favorite armchair, she heard a faint scratching sound. It was a rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape coming from the direction of the shelf. When she looked up, the sound stopped instantly. The doll was motionless, its grin fixed, but the silence that followed was somehow more menacing. At night, the whispers started. Clara started leaving the lights on, the silence now oppressive and threatening. The focus of the haunting soon centered on Clara herself. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, she heard music, a faint, tinny child's music box sound playing a simple, repetitive tune. The melody was sweet, but its presence in the silent house was deeply unsettling. She followed the sound to the living room. The music was coming from the shelf. The Labubu doll sat there, perfectly still, the delicate plinking notes seeming to come from it. As she got closer, the tune warped, notes bending and souring into a discordant, grating melody, like a beautiful song played backwards, twisted into something malevolent and wrong. She reached out to snatch the doll, but when her fingers brushed its cool surface, the music stopped abruptly. Silence rushed back in, deafening. Sleep offered no escape. Her dreams swelled with the image of the doll towering over her. Its black eyes were swirling voids that pulled her in, its toothy grin a silent scream she felt in her bones. She would wake in a cold sweat, the phantom music box melody still echoing in her ears. Clara's state deteriorated rapidly. Dark circles, no appetite, startled by the slightest noise. The malevolent energy that had been confined to the doll began to seep into the very structure of the house. Doors would open on their own. The television would switch on in the middle of the night, its screen filled with static. The house seemed to have developed a will of its own, conspiring with the doll against her. Even her neighbors felt it. Mr. Henderson's prize roses wilted overnight, petals black as if scorched. Sarah refused to visit after her car keys were found inside the locked mailbox at the end of the driveway. In desperation, she grabbed the Labubu to smash it, but it grew so hot it burned her hands. She dropped it. A high-pitched giggle echoed through the house from nowhere. Light bulbs burst. Faucets turned themselves on. Then gushed scalding water. For a split second, blood red, whispers slid from the vents. Unseen hands brushed her skin. The house itself had turned on her. Clara tried to throw it away. For one night the house was quiet. She slept soundly. Then morning came. There it was, sitting in her favorite armchair, grin wider than ever. She drove to the old quarry, wrapped it in heavy chain, said a silent prayer, and hurled it into the green depths. That night a violent storm. Tap, tap, tap. Through the peephole, on the porch, dripping and tangled in rusty chains, was the Labubu. The events of that night remain a mystery in Harmony Creek. The next morning, Clara May's front door was found wide open. The house was in disarray. A trail of small, wet footprints led to the center of the living room, and then simply stopped. Of Clara, there was no sign, only a life's worth of belongings and unanswered questions. The police searched thoroughly, but it was as if she had been erased from existence. Only the Labubu remained, dry, clean, its toothy grin fixed, black eyes staring at the chaos. When the police chief picked it up, he swore he felt a faint vibration, a low, contented hum. The house was sold. The doll packed away, sent to a distant auction. Clara's tale became a whisper, and the town returned to its predictable rhythm, changed, and more watchful. And so the Labubu doll travels on, a silent passenger waiting for the right person, the right loneliness. If you see a doll with large ears and a grin a little too wide, perhaps it's best to walk away.